If you are visiting Japan for the first time, make sure you watch this video because in it, I'm going to be sharing the most important ultra-specific tips and must-knows from how to score free domestic flights and save money on shopping to super niche things like the best snacks to get from Japan's most iconic convenience stores. Now, in case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com, and this channel is all about practical travel advice from someone who's been there, done that. I just got back from about 2 weeks in Japan, a portion of which was with Airlo, my go-to eSIM company, and this week's sponsor who invited me on their first ever brand trip, which was so much fun, but more on them later. Now, this video will focus on general tips for Japan, but I do have some more specific videos for Tokyo and Kyoto coming as well, so be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss them. Now, let's get started with some Japan travel planning tips. In terms of where to go, do know that Japan is separated into 47 prefectures across 8 regions, so there really is a lot to see and do. These regions are from north to south: Hokkaido, known for its amazing nature and outdoors, especially snow sports in the winter, as well as their milk, which is weirdly amazing. Tohoku, which is known for its beautiful landscapes and hot springs. Kanto, which is where you'll find the country's capital of Tokyo. Chubu, which is known for its dramatic mountainscapes, including the iconic Mount Fuji. Kansai, famous for its mix of natural and cultural offerings, as well as the major cities of Kyoto and Osaka. Chugoku, home to a number of unique natural and historic sites, including Hiroshima. Shikoku, which is known for its 88 temple pilgrimage route, feudal castles, and unspoiled nature. And Kyushu, which is known for its epic nature from volcanoes to hot springs, as well as the island chain of Okinawa, which some consider a distinct region of its own. Now, the most common trip for first-timers is a mixture of sites in Kanto and Kansai, namely Tokyo and Kyoto, sometimes Osaka. This is what I did on my trip with a day trip to Nara, and it was definitely perfect for a first-time visit. I mean, we could have tried to squeeze in more in the 2 weeks, but honestly, my best advice is that you really just need to make peace with the fact that you won't get to see everything and accept that it's better to explore a handful of destinations thoroughly rather than rush through them. So give your itinerary some room to breathe, and your future self will definitely thank you. Another reason the Tokyo and Kyoto/Osaka combo is so popular is, of course, the main international airports of Japan are located in Tokyo and Osaka, but you should know that there are programs for free and discounted domestic flights. Now, this is a tip that I think most people don't know because it is still so new, but basically in 2024, both national airlines in Japan, being JAL Japan Airlines and ANA All Nippon Airways, introduced special programs where you can actually add extra domestic flights to your journey for free or for a heavy discount. Now, I'll leave the links for that in the description for you to check out, but definitely something to take advantage of if you want to see more of Japan beyond the major cities. Now, apart from flights, accommodation will be your biggest cost, and honestly, in big cities like Tokyo and Kyoto, the prices can be crazy. So definitely make sure that you're booking ahead, and I would also advise you prioritize hotels that are near transport hubs for convenience, and also pay attention to things like room size. In terms of accommodation, Airbnbs aren't usually a great option for many reasons, and hotels offer a lot of extra perks that you can use in Japan, like being able to coordinate things like luggage delivery or storing bags before and after your stay. If affordability is an issue, I would recommend looking into big business traveler-oriented chains instead. There are tons of these in Japan that cater to business budgets and can therefore offer some great reliable value. Some really big ones include Smile Hotel, Daiwa Roinet, Dormy Inn, beloved for their perks like on-site sentos, which are hot spa baths and free ice cream, yogurt, and noodles. An honorable mention does go to Hen Na hotels, which are usually super affordable, but that's because they're mainly staffed by robots, often dressed up as dinosaurs, and yes, you can look that up because it is 100% real. Another option that you'll see everywhere as a cheap option is Appa, though I would probably not book with them for tons of different reasons that you may have read about recently in the news, but I will let you decide that for yourself. There are some special types of accommodation to look into as well if you're looking for a unique experience. For instance, ryokan, which are Japanese-style inns known for their tatami mat rooms that look like this. And this is where you'll be sleeping on roll-out futon pads and where you'll get to enjoy set meals like a multi-course dinner and breakfast included in your stay. These can be pricier, but definitely worth putting on your radar, especially when there's cool perks like a private onsen involved. And there are, of course, also the infamous love hotels, which provide short stays starting by the hour that are designed for people seeking a bit of private time. There are actually said to be over 20,000 of these in Japan, and I have heard many stories of tourists unknowingly booking them because they were cheap, not realizing their main intended purpose. In any case, now you know. Regardless of whether you're booking hotels or flights though, a very crucial thing to keep in mind if you're coming from overseas is always triple check the time difference and any changes in day when you're booking. For instance, coming from Vancouver, Canada, Tokyo was 16 hours ahead, so I arrived a day later than my departure date. I've heard lots of horror stories from people accidentally booking hotels for the wrong days or even missing their flights because they forgot to account for this time difference, so make sure that is not you. Now, in terms of when to visit, do know that Japan has very distinct seasons, each with their own sets of pros and cons. Generally, the peak seasons across the board include cherry blossom season, which is generally mid-March to early April, autumn foliage season, generally mid-October to the end of November, and the period known as Golden Week, which refers to a period from late April to early May where there's 4 national holidays stacked up in close succession, which makes it a very, very popular time for locals to travel around the country. Now, while crowds can be thinner in between these periods, the reality is that Japan is almost always busy, and most in-between periods also have issues of their own. June, for instance, is rainy season, which is something that I personally experienced firsthand. And July to August is known for its stifling heat. And with the winter, of course, the days are short and a lot of the iconic gardens that the country is known for are pretty dead. So just keep all these factors in mind when you're deciding when to go. Next, you should know which apps to download to make your Japan trip 1,000 times easier. First, this isn't an app, but Visit Japan Web is the portal where you can make an account and fill out your customs declaration digitally so you don't have to do the paper version. You can also enter your information to get a QR code, and you can actually scan that for tax-free shopping as well, and so that's going to save you a bit of hassle and time when you go to tax-free shops. Another one you'll definitely need is Google Maps. More on this one later, but you will definitely be using it every day. As well as Google Translate, which you can use to translate signs and menus super easily. I would advise downloading Japanese for offline use as well, just in case, so you can use it whenever. There's also a very cool app called Peiki that lets you scan any barcode, and then it's going to pull up the product description in English for you, which is super helpful when you're shopping around. And finally, there's this super random app with no reviews that I downloaded from the App Store that nobody ever talks about, but it was exactly what I needed, so I'm going to share it with you now. It's called Travel Japan, and it's basically a Japanese phrase book that has the most important phrases for different contexts, and then you can hear all the different phrases you need in a very clean and organized way. Next, to use all these apps in advance of your trip, something super important is that you make sure you have data access available to you as soon as you land in Japan. And I do mean the moment you arrive, because you'll need internet for all sorts of things almost immediately, from translating signs to filling out customs forms to save time. This is why I far prefer an eSIM over waiting to buy a physical SIM card or pocket Wi-Fi. So on that note, this week's video is brought to you by Airlo, my go-to eSIM provider that has options for over 200 countries and regions around the world, including Japan, where they actually just hosted their very first brand trip that I was so lucky to be a part of. Now, for those unfamiliar with them, an eSIM stands for Embedded SIM, meaning they are pre-installed on your device and work 100% digitally to connect you with local telecom networks, meaning no more struggling with physical SIM cards or paying for expensive roaming. I think that having mobile data is important everywhere these days, but in Japan, I was using Google Maps and Translate so often that I really don't think I could have survived my trip without it. Because our flight arrived late, we needed data as soon as we landed so that we could message the hotel, who had limited reception hours. I also needed data to look up directions to the hotel and even use it to top up my transport cards so I could take the train. Luckily, I was able to set everything up in advance on the Airlo app before departure, choosing a package and setting it up within just a few minutes, which meant I had data connection as soon as our plane landed, which was a huge relief. So if you want to try them out, Airlo is offering a very limited time deal until the end of July, where you get 20% off your first eSIM purchase. So be sure to use the code HAPPY20 through this link here to secure this super generous offer. And even if you aren't traveling in the next few weeks, you can actually just buy the eSIM now and activate it when you do travel so you don't miss out on this awesome deal. And if you need a bit of help, you can also check out my complete Airlo guide for step-by-step instructions on how to set your eSIM up. So thanks again to Airlo for sponsoring this week's video and inviting me to come explore Japan. Now let's continue with our next tip, which is that you should definitely try to find a Japanese show, manga, character, etc. to become obsessed with before you go on your trip. Fan culture is massive in Japan, and trust me, it really enhances the experience a million times if you have a particular anime or character or thing that you love. Luckily, I grew up with Sanrio and Pokemon, so I had an amazing time. Let me know in the comments if you have any Japanese things that you're also completely obsessed with. Next, let's talk about Japan transport tips and getting around. In terms of traveling from city to city, Japan is probably best known for its extensive rail system, especially its incredible Shinkansen, which is the local term for bullet train. These high-speed trains can get you from Tokyo to Kyoto in just over 2 hours. Now, a lot of first-timers wonder what the best way is to get tickets, so one thing you really should know is that train prices in Japan are generally fixed, and buying individual tickets is usually best. Now, a lot of people wonder about passes like the JR Pass that gives you unlimited train travel for a set price. But due to recent price increases, this is honestly very rarely worth it these days. Instead, buying tickets as you need them works really well even once you arrive, since the price doesn't actually go up closer to the date like it does in other countries. The good news is, because of how many trains there are running, it's very rare that you'll have 0 options for getting from point A to point B due to not booking a ticket in advance. There's also almost always cars with unreserved seats that are first come, first serve. But if you want to guarantee a specific seating arrangement, let's say you want to make sure you sit with your travel buddies, or you want a window seat that faces Mount Fuji, for instance, or maybe you want a seat that includes space for large suitcases, then it is best to book those in advance to avoid disappointment. But there are many other train types beyond the Shinkansen that might make more sense for your journey. So always look out for different options rather than opting for the Shinkansen automatically. There are also special tourist trains like the Aniyashi Sightseeing Limited Express that offers an elegant atmosphere and special tourist perks like extra luggage space that you might want to look into, as well as lots of fun privately owned trains that don't necessarily show up on Google Maps, like the romantic train Sagano that takes you from Kyoto to Higashiyama, and the famous Pikachu train. Now, to make travel seamless, I do highly recommend you download a digital IC card, like a Suica card, to use on your phone for quick payments. IC cards are super popular in Japan and are basically prepaid cards that you can use for contactless payments in a variety of places, including public transport, vending machines, convenience stores, and yes, even claw machines, which I learned was very, very dangerous for me personally. Having a card like this allows you to just tap in and out of public transport without needing to worry about getting the right ticket and knowing you have the right zones and what you're paying. So it really does make life a lot easier, especially if you can get one downloaded on your phone. Suica cards are some of the most popular IC cards, and these days you can actually just load one directly onto your Apple Wallet, which makes topping up a breeze. Alternatively, there are other IC cards you can get too, though the best one might depend on where exactly in Japan you're going, because some are more commonly accepted in certain regions than others. Now, in terms of taking trains in Japan, there are certain things that first-timers might not be used to. I feel like this topic could honestly be a whole video in itself, so let me know in the comments if you'd like a full train guide to Japan, but do keep the following in mind. First, beware that stations are huge and confusing, so plan to arrive early. I should also note that trains in Japan are super punctual, and there are many of them, so don't ever board too early, at least not until you double check the train number. I've heard lots of stories of first-timers boarding what they thought was their train, but it was actually one departing earlier than theirs from the same platform, so in the end, it wasn't the right train. Speaking of double checking, do double check station names as well. Most cities will have multiple stations, like Shin Osaka versus just Osaka. Shin is a word that you'll encounter a lot. In Japanese, it basically means the newer version of something. So Shin Osaka would be the new Osaka station. Also, if there's a train with a route that is super popular with tourists, let's say from Kyoto to Nara, for instance, do definitely keep walking along the platform to cars that are further down to avoid the crowds. Usually, if you keep walking until the end, few people make it that far, and you might even have a car all to yourself. I should say as well, if luggage is a stressor for you, that Japan does actually offer some very reliable luggage delivery services to save you from bringing it all with you. Yamato is a very popular company for this, but most hotels actually work with specific couriers, so definitely ask your hotel if they offer this as an option. Now, in terms of getting around once you're in your destination, do plan that every journey will take at least 10 minutes more than Google Maps tells you, if not more. Now, this is because Japanese train stations can be massive, so finding the right exit can actually be a huge challenge in itself, but also places can often be really hard to find because in larger cities, many businesses are actually stacked on top of each other on multiple floors, both in malls and in different buildings. So following the blue dot on Google Maps might not actually be all that helpful. So if you're looking for a specific business, do look in the address for a bit that ends with F, because usually that's going to tell you which floor that exact business is on. Now, I do have to say, while you'll no doubt have your share of walking in Japan and public transport in most cities is excellent, taxis are pricey but can be worth it for the time saved, especially when you're traveling in a group. Uber is actually an app that you can use to call a taxi in Japan. So this can make things a lot easier in terms of making sure they get your destination right, even with the language barrier. But do know that when you're calling a taxi through the Uber app, that is still going to be using the taxi's metered fare. So in some cases, the rate will actually be more than the estimate that they give you on the app, which did happen to me a few times. But if you're taking a taxi, a final FYI is that taxi doors do open automatically for you, or the driver likes to get it for you, so don't try to open the door yourself. All right, now this next section is going to be a big one. Let's talk about Japan food and drink tips. First, don't stress. Japan honestly has tons of great places to eat everywhere, so you should really try not to overplan. I think a lot of first-timers get caught up in wanting to try places that they've seen go viral on social media or ones that have really high ratings on Google Maps. But honestly, I do think this is a big mistake. There are truly excellent options all over the place, so I would prioritize the sites that I want to see and then find food close by rather than plan the entire itinerary around famous food spots. This can just result in you standing in long lineups with other tourists who saw that exact same TikTok as you, and especially in large cities like Tokyo and Kyoto, this can really mess up the flow of your sightseeing. So definitely go find your own gems. You don't necessarily need to go to all the viral spots. In terms of reviews though, do beware that Japanese reviewers are notoriously harsh, and the go-to local app for restaurant reviews isn't actually Google Maps, it's Tablelog. So be sure to use that app if you want to see what locals are saying. Next, you have probably heard the rumors, and I am here to confirm that Japanese convenience stores have tons of tasty and affordable options if you're on a budget. The main ones that you'll find on pretty much every corner include 7-Eleven, Family Mart, and Lawson. Honestly, all of them sell a similar assortment of to-go food options like onigiri, buns, snacks, and drinks, even hot bottled ones to go, by the way, which I've never experienced before, as well as to-go meals that you can get heated up on site. In any case, it's fun to scope out each one and see which one you prefer and what's different. 7-Eleven, for instance, I love because they have these really great affordable smoothie cups that you can buy and get blended on site. So that's perfect for getting some veggies and fruit in. And Family Mart is quite well known for its Family Chiki, which is a surprisingly delicious and juicy piece of fried chicken. They're also known for their weirdly nice quality apparel, like Family Mart branded socks. Now, in terms of types of food places, you'll honestly find all kinds of establishments for every price point. So make sure you're trying a wide variety of Japanese dining experiences and styles. Some terms to familiarize yourself with include izakaya. Now, these are Japanese pubs that serve alcohol along with a menu of tasty snacks and smaller dishes like skewers and sashimi. Omakase, which is a style of dining that translates to I leave it up to you and gives the chef full control over what you're having. Perfect if you're indecisive. Yakiniku, which is Japanese barbecue, where the meat is usually cooked to your liking at table grills. And of course, teppanyaki, where your meal is prepared by chefs in front of you on a hot griddle. Though I have to say, in Japan, it is less of a fun entertainment experience with tricks like in North American teppanyaki places like Benihana, so be prepared for that. In any case, Japanese food is absolutely incredible, and honestly, there are way too many good things to list. But you should definitely familiarize yourself with the most common Japanese must-tries in terms of food. Let's start with ramen. This is the go-to affordable noodle soup dish that's perfectly rich and comforting, often served quickly as well, which is ideal for tourists. There's a lot of different kinds of soup bases like shio, which is salt, shoyu, which is soy sauce, miso, which is fermented bean paste, and tonkatsu, which is made with pork bones. But there are tons of different variations depending on where you go, so just try them all. There's also noodles of all kinds, honestly, like udon, which are thick and chewy wheat flour noodles, or soba, which is made with buckwheat. Both come in infinite varieties, often in broth, and trust me, you just have to try them all. Another one is sushi, of course, though beware that the options might be different to what you're used to back home. Sushi in Japan tends to be quite simple because they prioritize fresh ingredients, so you want to actually be able to taste them. Sashimi, which is just raw seafood, or nigiri, which is raw seafood on a ball of sushi rice, are usually the most common. Another really good one is Japanese curry, which involves a rich sauce base made with curry powder along with your protein of choice. This is an absolute must-have in terms of comfort food. Related to this is curry bread, which is like a stuffed bread pocket with curry inside that's coated in breadcrumbs and deep fried. So good. Another staple is onigiri, which are these readily available rice balls with different fillings and usually a layer of crispy seaweed outside. There's also okonomiyaki, which is like a savory omelet pancake made of eggs, flour, cabbage, and all sorts of different fillings and toppings. And grilled skewers like yakitori, which is made with chicken, or skewers with other grilled meats. And we are not done. In terms of sweet treats, I can really recommend daifuku, which is stuffed mochi or glutinous rice cake that comes with different fillings like red bean paste being a popular one, though I'm personally partial to the custard ones. There's also taiyaki, which are these crispy filled griddle cakes, usually in the shape of a fish, but you can sometimes find other fun ones like this Snoopy one that I got in Kyoto. And honestly, anything with Hokkaido milk, which is milk from Japan's Hokkaido region, known for its distinctive creaminess and rich flavor. Ice cream or cakes made with it are so good. And honestly, anything matcha flavored from ice cream to pastries is delicious. But in general, the amazing sweet buns that you'll get in convenience stores and bakeries all over are a really affordable and delicious option. My favorite is the melon pan, which isn't flavored like melon, by the way, but it's named that way because it's a sweet bun with a crackly crust on top that kind of looks like a melon. Okay, sorry for the specificity, but I know how stressful it is trying to figure out what to eat in Japan, so comment ramen below if you're still with me. I know it doesn't sound possible, but honestly, all these recommendations are just barely scraping the surface. On top of these general ones, something I really advise is you try local specialties depending on where you are. Japan actually has quite a varied food scene, so try to eat based on what the place is well known for as well, instead of just trying sushi and ramen everywhere you go. Now, when you're dining out, something you'll often encounter is that some places will actually outright require you to buy one drink per person or one dish per person. In my experience, this will be written somewhere on the menu, or they'll disclose it to you as soon as you sit down. Apparently, the reason for this is many smaller restaurants don't actually profit too much off the food, so they enforce a drink minimum just to help ensure that they actually make money, which I personally think is fair. Related to this is that many bars and izakayas will actually charge a cover fee of a few hundred yen. And generally, they'll say that this includes a small appetizer of some kind, though you truly never know what you're gonna get. And based on personal experience, they're not always the tastiest appetizers, so just keep that in mind. Speaking of drinks though, you should also get familiar with all the different fun drinks that are available in Japan, because it's honestly not just about the food here. On the non-alcoholic front, tea is obviously huge. Matcha, which is powdered green tea, might now be known worldwide, but I also really like sencha, which is the usual green tea that they serve in restaurants, and hojicha, which is roasted green tea. But honestly, there are tons of types of tea that you can try, and you can get them bottled both hot and cold in most convenience. Other great soft drinks include sport ion drinks like Pocari Sweat, which sounds gross, but really helps you stay hydrated, and fermented dairy drinks like Yakult and Calpis that are weirdly refreshing and delicious. I know it doesn't sound good, but it's very, very good. In terms of alcoholic drinks, most places are big on beer, and of course sake, which is a rice-based wine. But another one that's quite unique that I discovered on this trip are sours, specifically lemon sours, which are these super refreshing cocktails made with shochu, soda water, and fresh lemon juice. They'll also do all sorts of other flavored fruit sours, which are amazing on a hot day. Plum wine or umeshu is another popular one that's delicious on its own or mixed with soda water. And whiskey is also huge in Japan, with highballs being another popular mixed drink, combining whiskey and soda water. Next, do definitely check out local chains for an affordable and casual meal option on the go. Yes, it is fun to eat at independent restaurants, but honestly, Japan has so many amazing chains that are well worth experiencing. Like Koko Ichibanya, which is Japan's most beloved curry chain, Yayoi, which specializes in home-style taishoku set meals with bottomless rice refills, and Marugame Saimen for inexpensive udon. Now let's move on to some Japan tips for attractions. First, very important, do make sure you're booking ahead for popular spots and attractions to avoid disappointment. And I'm talking months early. The new Nintendo Museum, for instance, requires you to put your name in a draw 3 months before your desired visit. Other big ones you should definitely book in advance include Team Labs installations. There's a few of them, and usually you should book these at least a few days in advance, as well as popular viewpoints like Shibuya Sky, especially at peak times like sunset. And honestly, lots of ultra popular food spots like the Pokemon Cafe or any other viral places. Now, I will have a more specific list with timelines in my future videos for both Tokyo and Kyoto, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss them. That said, some places will have last-minute slots open up, so if you don't manage to get a spot, do keep checking. For instance, I saw lots of Pokemon Cafe reservation slots open up the day before because canceling is free, and I think the deadline is either 9 or 10 p.m., so usually around then, a lot of slots open up. And do know that there are plenty of activities for you to do outside of the main suggested must-dos. Now, honestly, I do think it is possible to overplan your Japan trip and just hop from one booking to the next, but if you do that, I promise you're going to be miserable. So be sure to look beyond these most popular spots and try to find some quieter alternatives, which is very easy to do for things like temples or shrines, of which there are thousands across the country. So on that note, do note that there are many differences between temples and shrines and different etiquette to abide by. While the two are often lumped together in sightseeing itineraries, there are some really big differences between temples and shrines in Japan to be mindful of. The big ones being that temples are linked to Buddhism, while shrines are linked to Shintoism, which is a religion that's indigenous to Japan that believes in sacred spirits known as kami that inhabit the nature, people, and objects that make up our world. Interestingly, a lot of Japanese people actually participate in rituals of both, so it's not like a one or the other type situation. Now, how can you tell the difference between temples and shrines? Well, usually Shinto shrines are the ones that are marked by a torii gate. The expected etiquette here is that you bow once before entering through the gate, usually not in the direct center because that's reserved for the deity. You then cleanse your hands and mouth at the shrine's water pavilion. And in terms of praying, if you want to do that, you go to the altar and throw a coin into a box for the offerings. You ring the bell and bow twice before clapping twice, and then saying your prayer and ending with a final bow. At Buddhist temples, however, the protocol is a little bit different and definitely not as strict, though you'll often have to remove your shoes if you're entering inside temple buildings. Prayer here is often preceded only by a monetary offering, although sometimes lighting incense is a common ritual. And okay, this might be my favorite tip of all because it is just so fun, but just FYI, Japan is full of free stamps that you can collect at attractions and train stations, so don't miss them. They make the perfect free souvenir. I personally would recommend you buy a notebook or even a special stamp book from a local stationery store to collect all these stamps because they're so much fun. And if you're anything like me, you will quickly become obsessed with collecting these stamps, and before no time, you'll be downloading apps like StampQuest and joining Facebook groups such as the Japan Stamp Rally to find the different locations of these stamps. When in doubt, just ask. The staff on site tend to always be happy to help. Now, I should say these stamps are not to be confused with the Goshin stamps, which are official seal stamps from places of worship that mark your visit as a sign of devotion. These are also a very unique keepsake, but they require special Goshin books intended for this purpose only, not to be mixed with those other fun stamps that you collect at train stations. And usually these stamps are not free, they typically come at the cost of a few hundred yen each. Now, depending on the place, some will give you a paper goshin to stick in your book by yourself, but many also add the stamp and calligraphy manually, which is super cool to witness because they put a lot of artistry into it. Now let's move on to some Japan etiquette tips. This is definitely a big one because I know many first-timers worry about coming across as rude on their trip, so here are some very important things to keep in mind. First, know that respect and consideration for others is huge in Japan, so you want to behave accordingly. So make sure you're not blocking people's pathways with your luggage, and make sure you're adhering to signs that tell you where to stand or walk on escalators. And also make sure you're respectfully lining up for things without cutting in line by accident, because they're very strict on queuing here. And also that you're, of course, cleaning up after yourself in public spaces. Respect is so huge in Japan that chefs and bartenders will literally follow you out of the establishment to bow and say goodbye. So yes, make sure you are as respectful as possible and kind of return the favor because they are so hospitable and respectful. That said, don't stress too much about following all these unwritten rules and making locals angry because honestly, they tend to be super understanding. These days, I actually think there's a lot of fear-mongering in terms of what is considered rude or offensive in Japan. Trust me, unless you are being super blatantly disrespectful, odds are most locals will give you a pass because they recognize that you're a tourist and you might not necessarily know how all the things are done in Japan. This isn't to say you should forget adapting customs altogether, you should try your best, but just note that the occasional misstep isn't going to be the end of the world, and they will most likely be incredibly nice about it. Next, do try to learn some basics in Japanese before your trip so that you can kind of get by. I'll be honest with you, in many cases around tourist areas, most staff, ranging from train stations to convenience stores, are well equipped with signs in English to help with communication, even if they don't speak it themselves. So they'll point to a sign and ask if you need a bag. That said, knowing a little bit of Japanese is still very nice and can help you navigate a lot more confidently. So some basics to keep in mind include arigatou gozaimasu, which is of course thank you very much. You'll be saying this a lot for sure. Sumimasen, which means excuse me in the context of both getting someone's attention and also saying sorry for bumping into them. And for greetings, konnichiwa for the day and konbanwa for the evenings. In a pinch, of course, Google Translate works very well. Often I even notice local people use it to communicate in English when they don't know how to speak it, which I think is so sweet and considerate. So don't be afraid to use Google Translate back. Next, keep in mind that tipping is not expected when you're in Japan. I have found some exceptions to this in very touristy situations, but in these cases, they'll make it very clear that tips are accepted. Otherwise, there is no obligation to tip, and in some cases, they actually do find it rude, so no need to tip. Another big one is to make sure you refrain from eating while walking or when you're taking most forms of public transport. Now, this is kind of an unwritten social norm, and there's also very few public garbage cans, so you'll be holding onto your trash for a while. While some locals will say that this is fine depending on the context, like so long as it's not a messy snack and you're not walking in a crowded place with a ton of other people around you, I honestly would still just avoid it altogether because better safe than sorry. And yes, this does apply especially in places like food markets, which I know sounds crazy, but you'll see tons of signs reminding you of this in all the touristy food markets, so make sure you find a perch to eat your food on the premises before you start walking around. In most popular markets, there usually is a small area with a perching stand in the back or sometimes in front of the stall. Speaking of food, do note that there are a lot of unspoken chopstick and eating etiquette rules to be aware of. Now, honestly, again, tourists largely get a free pass. Nobody's gonna kick you out of a restaurant just because you used your chopsticks wrong, but these are just some things to keep in mind in case you wanna keep with local etiquette. Now, generally, you'll be given moist napkins or towels at the start of your meal. Use these to wipe your hands, not your face. In terms of shared dishes, you shouldn't be using personal chopsticks to grab things off a shared plate. Instead, opt for a separate set or in a pinch the other end of your chopsticks. And refrain from passing things from one set of chopsticks to another or putting your chopsticks straight up in a bowl of rice or noodles or whatever it is you're eating. Another big general rule is to avoid speaking too loudly on public transport and just generally out in public. And you'll notice, especially on trains and public spaces in Japan, that speaking loudly is just not that common, so you definitely don't want to disrupt the peace. And of course, remember to take off your shoes inside and make use of slippers. Cleanliness is a huge deal in Japan, and wearing shoes inside homes and certain restaurants or temple areas is a huge no-no. Even in public bathrooms in restaurants sometimes, there will be signs asking you to remove your shoes and use the slippers that are available instead. When in doubt, always look for signs that outline the protocol and you'll be good. Now, finally, let's move on to some Japan tips for once you actually arrive. First, we have to talk about Japanese toilets because they are truly high-tech and incredible, but if you're not used to them, then you should know that Japanese toilets come with a number of cool features, so you should definitely familiarize yourself with them so that you're not just left confused staring at a sea of buttons. These days, especially in touristy areas, most of the toilet buttons, I have to say, do actually come with English translations, but you will encounter a few that are entirely in Japanese, so to save you the awkwardness of using Google Translate while you're on the toilet, here are some main symbols for you to look out for. Now, the flush is usually depicted by a whirlpool symbol. Sometimes there's a light flush option and a heavy flush option, though some toilets will actually have a separate flush that's either motion detected or manual, so don't be confused. Sometimes it won't actually be present on that little interface on the side. Have a look around. Now, these buttons actually activate the bidet. Usually this one will do the front and this one will do the back, or as all the buttons like to say, the rear. You can press the stop button here when you're done. And this button typically activates the dryer, though don't worry, toilet paper usually is available as well. And some toilets will have a privacy button that will, no joke, play music and sound effects so that you can cover up any awkward bathroom noises, which I find amazing. On the opposite end of the spectrum though, you might find in some public spaces that Japanese-style squat toilets are still a thing. I personally only saw this in a few places though, and there were always Western-style toilets available, but just beware that this might be something that comes up if you're traveling in a more rural area, for instance. All that said, though toilets in Japan are usually very high-tech, you might find that some public toilets in Japan will not actually have soap or hand dryers by default. This is why I would advise you carry a bit of hand sanitizer with you at all times, and if you like dry hands, you can do as the locals do and buy yourself a small towel to dry your hands with. These are usually available in the most adorable designs in pretty much every gift shop you can find. Next, very important, do know that you should bring cash because there are still some cash-only businesses and attractions, so it's really good to be prepared. And just FYI, when you pay in Japan, there usually is a small tray where you can put your cash or card rather than handing it directly to the cashier. And in general, I have to say you should be ready for a lot more interactions in general throughout the purchase process. Usually they'll confirm the price with you or sometimes the expiration date of things to make sure you fully understand what you're buying. It's honestly really sweet. Related to this whole cash thing as well is you should really consider buying a coin purse with organizers for all your coins, and also in advance maybe having a quick crash course on what each coin is worth, because Japanese yen coins can quickly become a confusing mess in your wallet. And if you ever have an opportunity to spend the smaller ones like 1 or 5 yen by paying exact change at a grocery store or convenience store, definitely go for it, because even most vending machines ask for 10 yen as a minimum. Do note that this can be especially easy at convenience stores where they have these payment machines that you can just put a bunch of coins into, so it's not as stressful as just like handing a mountain of coins over to a person. Next, if you want to be compliant with Japanese law, yes, you do in fact need to carry your passport around with you at all times. Though, practically speaking, I haven't really heard of anybody getting their passports checked just while sightseeing, but I'll leave it up to you if the risk is worth it. I will say though, a lot of you will probably end up carrying your passport anyway, just because you're gonna need it if you're gonna do any tax-free shopping, as that is a requirement. On that note, if you do plan to shop in Japan, you should definitely try to understand in advance how tax-free shopping works and the different rules around it. So do note that many changes are coming into effect in November 2026, but for now, as of June 2025, this is how it all works. In Japan, temporary visitors can qualify for tax-free purchases, which essentially saves you from paying the local consumption tax, which is 8% for food goods and 10% for everything else, so long as you meet the following criteria. First, that your total exceeds 5,000 yen before tax, that the tax-free items will be leaving the country with you, and in the case of consumable items, meaning anything you can use part of, like food, beverages, medicine, and cosmetics, you actually keep those goods inside their special packaging and do not use them while you're in the country. And you also can't get more than 500,000 yen's worth tax-free for those ones. There are two main ways that you can get your tax-free rate. Some stores will take it off directly at the till once you show them your passport, and other places will make you pay full price, then give you a cash refund if you bring your receipt to a tax refund counter. On paper, they also say that you may need to present your tax-free goods at customs when you leave Japan, so they advise you actually put these items in your carry-on or let them know before you check the bags so that a customs officer can come and verify your purchases. In reality though, it sounds like a lot of travelers actually skip this step and turn out just fine, but just FYI if you want to be on the safe side. As a final note on this topic, do be aware that not all stores will offer tax-free, so look out for this sign out front that says Japan tax-free shop. And if you want to save even more money, you can usually find extra coupons and discount codes that you can stack on top for the best deal when you go to big department stores and things. And you can check out the written version of this guide for more details on that. Speaking of shopping though, another tip is if you see something that you like, do buy it there and then. Odds are you won't come back for it, and that is something I really learned the hard way. There are many things I kept thinking, okay, I'm gonna go back and get that, but realistically, I didn't have a chance to. So yes, just a reminder, when you see something you like, go buy it. Another niche shopping tip is that you should know that Don Quixote is actually quite pricey and also incredibly overstimulating. The main benefit of Don Quixote, or Donkey as it's affectionately known, is that you have lots of stuff concentrated in one place, and they're very familiar with tourists and the tax-free system. But in terms of prices, I did notice it was actually quite a bit pricier than some other stores for the same stuff. So if you want to save money, definitely shop around. And if you want to do any duty-free shopping at the airport, just know that there is a stress-free way to do that because you can actually place your duty-free order online in advance. I'll leave the link for that in the description. Next, do be aware that there are very few public trash cans, so be prepared to carry around your own trash. I can definitely recommend having a plastic bag inside of your day bag for this purpose. Finally, do be aware that some bars, restaurants, and cafes still allow smoking indoors. So don't be caught too off guard by that. All right, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more travel videos just like this one, and I'll see you next time. Bye!